Good morning mga kabiyahe. Ngayon po ay patungo na tayo sa second destination natin. Magmula dito sa unang destinasyon natin, ito yung Malacañang Palace Museum, kung saan dito nakalagak ang mga koleksyon ng ating Pangulo at mga souvenir. Ngayon po ay tayo ay tutungo sa ikalawang destinasyon, which is ito yung the Presidential Museum. At habang tayo po ay bumibiyahe papunta doon sa the Presidential Museum, ako po ay babati muna sa lahat ng mga tatay na Happy Father's Day po sa lahat ng mga tatay dyan, at maraming salamat po sa lahat na sumusubaybay at tumatangkilik sa biyahe ni Frank. At shoutout na rin po kina Kaabian TV, Delgado, Teresita Napagaw, Nanay Ruby Channel, Irene Delgado, Bicolana TV, Ruth Bostillo, Apolonia Estrada, Janice Delgado Natanyo, Cherry Marolaño Escobal, Eddie Briones, Lynn Tampis, Embodo Ray, Rekat Sikat, Evelyn Magramo, Susan Pabico, Rose Andrada, Rico Alparo, Luigi de la Cruz, Tenderang Cosinera, Matt Elvin Ayano, Miski Pabay Himino, Aaron Ligue, Rosbien Pastor Montilla, Loida Nahera, at Marisa Hobilla. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. So ito pong video mga kabiyahe ay hindi po natin kinat, lalo na po sa loob ng Presidential Palace o ng Presidential Museum, dahil pag kinat ko po yung ating video ay hindi maintindihan ng ating manonood ang mga sinasabi nitong tour guide po natin. Kaya po wala pong cut yan. Kaya babad na babad po ang ating audio recorder po dyan, para naman po maintindihan po talaga ng ating manonood kung ano man po ang mga linalaman ng Presidential Museum.
Kanina, mga nag-tour taga Zambales naman. Okay, everyone, magandang hapon. My name is Ron. I will be your guide for this afternoon. Now, before we enter this grand structure that we have here, I would like to give a brief introduction about the history of this building. Now, the history of this building could be traced back to one man alone. His name is Don Valentin Teus. He was born in Navarra, Spain in 1832 in the foothills of Pyrenees mountain range. At the young age of 15 years old, he courageously sailed halfway around the globe to reach far away Manila. Now, when he reached the Philippines in just a few years, he was able to buy a distillery in Hagonoy, Bulacan, which later merged with a Chowsi Compania. Now, his distillery would grow 1,000-fold, which we now know today as the Tanduay Distillery. Now, he became good friends with business tycoons such as the Elizaldes and the Chowsis. It made Don Valentin Teus a very wealthy and powerful man. In fact, in 1871, he became the Primera Alcalde of the Ayuntamiento de Manila and was able to marry the daughter of the Capitan General. Her name was Teresa Ponce, but unfortunately, she died early. Now, at the age of 60, Don Valentin Teus decided to marry once again, but this time to a 20-year-old girl. Her name is Dolores Valdez de Corneliana. Now, originally, the Teos family lived in Binondo. They had 5 children, but Don Valentin Teos wanted to surprise his new young wife, and this was the surprise. A mansion located in the fashionable Arrabal of San Miguel, Manila. Now, this mansion has a massive iron rock gate right there that opens up to this beautiful stone courtyard with a fountain. Now, look at the facade. It has neo-Gothic style pointed windows, and the central portion it protrudes, giving space on the second floor for the sala, and here on the first floor, the porch chair or the carriageway. I bet Dolores loved her gift. Now, after the death of Don Valentin Teus, this mansion was inherited by one of his daughters. Now, her name was Concepcion, but unfortunately, Concepcion settled in Spain. She barely visits the mansion at all, and she hired a old man as a caretaker. Now, as years passed, the one-floor mansion deteriorated. The kitchen roof fell, and the attic even became a home to a bad colony. Imagine, naging bahay ng pamilya yung attic nito. finally, in 1974, Concepcion decided to sell the house. It sold it to then first Lady Madam Imelda Marcos in behalf of the government. Now, Madam Marcos transformed the Taif Mansion into a guest house for the visitors of Malacañang. And today, the current administration dedicates this venue as the new home of the Presidential Museum. We welcome you here, everyone. Now, thank you. From the Spanish view, the country was seen as a prize. The Spanish Governor General has seen it as a reward for their mere loyalty to the Spanish crown. The Americans saw the governorship of the Philippine Islands as a just compensation for their loyalty to their political parties. And today, Filipino politicians have seen the presidency as a prize as well. So let's talk to first by the people. And according to the 1987 Philippine Constitution, we have 5 qualifications for those who are seeking for the presidential seat. Now, first, you must be a naturally born citizen of our country. Now, second, must be a registered voter. Third, must be able to read and write or literate. Fourth, must be at least 14 years of age. And fifth and last, must have lived here in the Philippines for 10 years prior to the election date. Since 1890. My first question is, who is our first president? May foreigner po tayo dito. Our first president is General Emilio Aguinaldo Ipagli from Gawit, Cavite. Nahihiya lang siguro, pero alam ko yun. Now please follow me here.
Ano mo yan eh, lahat na ano iniisulat kasi kailangan na yung mata niya.
Everyone, welcome. Please come inside. Okay. Everyone, we have here General Emilio Aguinaldo Ipagli. He led the Philippines through the Philippine Revolution and the Philippine-American War. Now, I specialize in trivias that most of our kabayans don't know. Like, for example, did you know that Emilio Aguinaldo is the youngest president at the age of 29 years old? And he's also the oldest to die among all of during the late 1800s as contemporaries of Dr. Rizal and Andres Bonifacio. But did you know that if we add 1 year in his lifetime, he would be able to meet the 10th President of the Philippines, President Marcos Sr. That's how long he lived his life. Now we have here collection from him. We have here his walking cane. The handle is actually made out of ivory. That's really expensive. Now we have here a copy of the Declaration of Independence that he personally designed in 1956. And we have right there his shoes. His shoes are very special. Now I'll ask my fellow kababayans, especially the lolos and lolos shoes. Now we have here next our second president, President Manuel Luis Quezon. Quezon may be the second president, but he was the first president of the Commonwealth period. Now, I'm sure you've heard the word Commonwealth before, but what does it mean here in the Philippines? Now, the Commonwealth refers to the 10-year transition government when we were still under the U.S. that happened from 1935 until 1946. It's like America is testing the Philippines if we are ready to gain our independence. Now, since America is testing us, we need to have a nationally elected president, and Quezon won the 1935 election. Now, during the time of President Quezon, he only got 695,000 votes. I know that's not a lot, but we should remember that during his time, there were only few voters, and sadly, women cannot vote yet. That's why Quezon and his wife, Doña Aurora Quezon, supported women's suffrage that was approved in 1937 during his time. That's why when Quezon ran for the second time around in 1941, he easily won the election with 1.3 million votes. Now, but sadly, in just a few months after his inauguration, the Philippines was invaded by Japan. That's why Quezon and his vice president, Sergio Osmeña, fled the Philippines and established a government in exile in the US. He was not able to return to his beloved Philippines because he died of tuberculosis in Saranac Lake, New York in 1944. Now we have close yan po, ikita kung nilang sinuot yan. Ganyan ba? Gusto ko ba talaga English or Tagalog dito? Kasi parang feeling ko nag-i-English ako. Hindi galing English. Dito ba? Tagalog rin na? Tagalog rin kasi tayo eh. Try ko mag-Taglish ha para mag-cater ko yung bong.
Taglish na.
Sige, Taglish na lang.
May isang foreigner kasi na.
Everyone, please gather around here. We have President Jose P. Laurel. You know what's sad about Jose P. Laurel is that when Filipinos hear his name, they only have one thing in mind. Isa lang yung naisip nila, he is the Japanese puppet president. Now, but we here in the Presidential Museum would like to clarify things. Jose P. Laurel just needs what needs to be done during the World War II. He just needs what needs to be done. Now, during the time of President Jose P. Laurel, it was wartime period. And when Quezon and his Vice President Sergio Osmeña left the Philippines, nag-iwan sila ng utos sa mga Filipino officials na natira. Ang utos nila, tulad kay Jose P. Laurel, maiwan kayo dito sa Pilipinas at sumunod kayo sa gusto ng mga Hapon para hindi pag-initan ng ating mga kababayan. Kaya sumunod lamang siya doon sa gusto ng mga Hapon. Kilala niyo ba si Jose Abad Santos? Isa siya sa nasa 1,000. Tatlong tao sa 1,000 dati. Isa si Jose Abad Santos doon. Siya ay Chief Justice natin noon. Na boss niya dahil siya ay Associate Justice, nasa baba siya. Pag wala ang Pangulo at ang Vice Presidente, ang susunod noon ay ang Chief Justice. Now, hindi siya sumunod sa gusto ng mga Hapon. Binaril siya sa harap ng kanyang anak. Now, anyway, si Pangulong Laurel, nakita niya ang kahinatnan niya na hindi niya mapaglilingkuran ng ating bansa kung siya ay papatayin ng mga Hapon, kaya sumunod lamang siya sa gusto ng mga Hapon. Ngunit, hindi yun naintindihan ng ating mga kababayan. Nagalit ang mga kababayan natin sa kanya dahil ang tingin sa kanya, traitor siya sa ating bayan. Kaya habang naglalaro siya ng golf sa Wakwak Mandaluyong 1941, binaril siya sa dibdib ng 3 beses. Kaya may golf club na nandoon na minsan niyang ginamit. Alam niyo, nabuhay si Pangulong Laurel. Nagpagaling siya sa PGH, sa Philippine General Hospital, at nadakip ang taong bumaril sa kanya. Ang pangalan niya, Feliciano Lizardo. Pagkontrabidin pangalan niya. But alam niyo, ang ginawa Laurel sa taong niya? Pinatawad niya. At higit sa lahat, ginawa niya pa bodyguard niya. Until 1959, he became loyal to Jose P. Laurel. Now, meron pa akong isang trivia na share sa inyo. Laurel is the only president of the Philippines who served the 3 branches of our government. Now, first, he was Associate Justice, so judiciary. Then he became the president, executive. Now, before and after his presidential term, he served as senator, so legislative. That's Jose P. Laurel. Now, we have here next, we have Sergio Suico Osmeña, the first Visayan president. Now, Sergio Osmeña also served the shortest term in Philippine history, only for 665 days. Dahil kinontinue na lamang yung mga nalalabing araw kay Pangulong Quezon. Hindi man nabanggit ko, namatay si Quezon because of TV. As the vice, he took charge. His administration focused on war reparations, and he reestablished the Commonwealth government here in the Philippines. Now, look right here at his clothing. Now, if you notice his clothing, nakapanglamig siya, naka-trench coat siya. Obviously, he didn't work here in Manila. Now, he worked during his time in the US. He is the only president of our country inaugurated abroad. He was inaugurated in Washington, D.C. Look at the flag that he used. What's wrong with that Philippine flag? Baliktad. It's upside down. Now, that was the flag that Osmeña used during his time. You're now staring at one of the last surviving Philippine war flags. Meron pa siyang firma ni Carlos P. Romulo dun sa gilid, or foreign secretary noon. Now, did you know that we had 2 presidents at the same time? Dalawa ang presidente natin dati, nagkasabay sila. Si Pangulong Sergio Osmeña at si Pangulong Laurel. Nagkasabay, one backed by the US, one backed by Japan. Now we have here next, we have President Manuel Acuña Rojas. Maaari po kayo pumasok sa mga exhibit nila. Sige po. Maaari po kayo pumasok. Go ahead. Sabay mo kayo. Tuloy po dito. Okay, tuloy po. Now, we have here si Pangulo Manuel Acuña Rojas, isang bar top notcher. Obviously, siya ay taga-Capiz, kaya ang Rojas City ay sa kanya ipinangalan. Now, si Pangulo Rojas po ang pinakaunang presidente ng Independent Philippines, 1946. Malaya na po ang Pilipinas nung siya ang naging Pangulo, dahilan kung bakit siya ang pinakaunang gumamit ng ating Republic Seal to symbolize our independence. Si Pangulong Rojas po ay hindi niya rin natapos ang kanyang termino because he died in 1948 after giving a speech in Clark Air Base, Pampanga. After he stepped down on the stage, he got a heart attack and he died on the spot. That's why his best friend and his vice president, President Elpidio Rivera Quirino, became the 6th president of our country. Now, Elpidio was not like the other presidents of our country because he came from a wealthy family. In fact, did you know that Elpidio Quirino was born in a jail cell? Not because his parents were inmates, but because his father used to work in the jail. Now, they lived a very, very poor life. That in fact, he was almost destined to finish only until grade 6. But because Quirino was very smart, he actually applied as a assistant barrio school teacher in Vigan. Now, kinagag niya sa 12 pesos per month lamang. Now, when he got enough money, he went here in Manila to study in the Manila High School, where he received many scholarships that pushed him through college. And he went to the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Now, he studied law. In 1915, he graduated with honors. And you know what's very surprising? On that same year, he took the bar exam. And the ending is the second highest in the whole Philippines. That's how smart he was. Now, because he was very smart, many job offers came to him and he became a clerk at first in the government, but someone saw young Elpidio Quirino and that was then Senate President Manuel Luis Quezon. Naisip siguro ni Quezon, ang galing ng batang to, so kinuha niya. He took Elpidio Quirino under his wing. They were so close that he often calls Quezon as Papa. Now, through Quezon, Elpidio Quirino saw the world of politics and he loves what he saw. That's why Elpidio Quirino went to his hometown in Ilocos Sur and he ran for politics as congressman. He easily won the election. Now, my favorite part of his story is this. Once he fell in love, and you know what's surprising? He had a problem. He fell in love with a 17-year-old girl. And by the time he was already 30, so half na ng age niya. And the big problem is this. Her name was Doña Alicia Siquia. Alicia came from the powerful family of the Siquias, a Chinese family immigrant from northern Luzon. That was his biggest problem. Now, but their marriage became inevitable. Eventually, they had 5 children and they even lived in the Siquia mansion in Vigan City. Now, back to politics. Elpidio Quirino, mahaba yung story ni Quirino, I'm sorry. Pero, trust me, this is like pang-MMK yung buhay niya, trust me. Now, anyway, Elpidio Quirino in politics became a senator during the 1920s and the 1940s. He even became the secretary of the Department of Finance. That's why they lived here in Manila, the capital city. They lived in Ermita, where the socialites lived then. But the 1940s is not a good decade in the pages of human history because that is the same decade of World War II. Now, in October 20, 1944, General Douglas MacArthur fulfilled his promise to the Filipino nation. And what was his promise?
I shall return.
I shall return. The 3 immortal words of MacArthur. And he did return on that day. He started recapturing again the Philippines one by one, island by island, starting from Visayas. The next was Mindanao. Next was Northern Luzon. The last was the city of Manila. But truth be told, when they reached Manila, during their first days, they were very careful because there were American prisoners of war in UST. But when they rescued those Americans, they were very to stop the war. It was called the Liberation of Manila. It started from February 3 to March 3, 1945. We should remember that America is stronger now than Japan, and they have many ammunitions and bombs with them. Now, if you saw pictures of old Manila during World War II, there's only one building standing left, and that's San Agustin Church. That's how strong the bombs of the Americans was. Now, on the side of the Japanese, to be fair, I know that you know this name. Filipino know this name. His name is Military Governor Tomoyoki Yamashita. The Yamashita treasure was named after him. He holds Southeast Asia. He was called as the Malay Tiger. Now, his instructions were very clear to his Japanese men. Retreat from Manila without any combat. But sadly, there was this one Japanese Navy officer. His name is Sanji Iwabuchi. He was stationed here in Manila with his 6,000 men. They were no longer listening to their superiors. What they have in mind and in heart is this: I know that we're losing the war. I know that the Americans will kill us, but we're gonna take all them with us in hell. That's why the massacre of Manila started. Now, the Filipino people were the real victims during the war here in the Philippines because they were caught between two colonial powers, the US and Japan. And the Quirino family is a perfect example of it. The day came when the Americans decided to bomb Ermita, where the Quirinos lived. Their house was set on fire. But Quirino was very quick to think. He was able to rescue 5 of his children that were less than 20 years old, and his wife. They were running for their lives in the streets of Ermita. But when they reached Colorado Street, that was the turn of the Japanese men. There were Japanese men in camouflage waiting for their next victim. What they did was unthinkable. They actually machine gunned the Quirino family. Now, on that incident, 3 of his children died, and his wife also died in that incident. 2 of his children survived, including him. Now, when they actually look back, what they survived first. The first to be shot was Norma. She was only 17 years old. She was shot many times at the back. Now, the second to be shot was Doña Alicia Siquia, the wife of El Pidio. She was very slow in running because there's a reason behind that. Now, third was Armando. She was actually killed by a shrapnel of a grenade straightly on the head. And last was Baby Fair, which is the worst. Baby Fair was only 2 years old, and she is the reason why Doña Alicia was very slow in running, because she was carrying her youngest daughter. When Alicia was shot at the back, the baby fell on the ground and began crying. But the Japanese did next was unthinkable. They took the child, threw the baby up in the air, and speared her with a bayonet. Imagine that horrible thing. El Pidio Quirino was able to save 2 of his other children, namely Vicky and Tomas. He returned to the lifeless bodies of his loved ones, and he buried them one by one from Ermita to Paco Cemetery. Imagine that horrible thing. But that same man in our story became the highest person in the Philippines in 1948. He became our president, and he was re-elected once again by the people during the 1949 elections because the Filipino nation thought that this man is a victim of Japan. He will be very, very aggressive addressing Japan. But that didn't kill him. In 1953, maybe it dwelled on him. That was his last year as the president of the Philippines. He can no longer address Japan as the leader. He was in Baltimore, Maryland, scheduled for a stomach operation, and he wrote a letter on his hospital bed, addressed to Japan. And this was the letter. It's a copy of it. Now, I'll read to you a very powerful paragraph in this one. Now, it went like this. I should be the last one to pardon them as the Japanese killed my wife and 3 children and 5 other members of my family. But I am doing this because I don't want my children and my people to inherit from me hate for people who might yet be our friends, for the permanent interest of the country. After all, destiny has made us neighbors. El Pidio Quirino is one of the big reasons why Japan now is our best friend, why the Philippines was able to move on easily and very quick from the horrors of World War II. Now, but you know what's sad? Japan never forget El Pidio Quirino. In 2016, the Japanese government decided to invite the descendants of Elpidio Quirino like Ruby, Aleli, Cory Quirino. They flew to Tokyo for what? For the unveiling of the monument of Elpidio Quirino right there, making him the only Filipino president to have a monument in Japan. The saddest part is this. The Japanese people knew him, but his fellow Filipinos don't know that he became a president. It's really sad. It's really sad. But now, here in the Presidential Museum, now you know his story. Okay? Everyone, let's move to the next. We have President Magsaysay. Sinasagot niyo pa rin yung tinignan, no? Now we have here, champion of the mass. Everyone loves this guy. Everyone loves Ramon Magsaysay. Gusto ko tignan yung outfit niya right there. Very humble and very simple. That's who Magsaysay is. Now, Magsaysay is the very first president to open the gates of Malacañang, literally. In January 1, 1954, his first orders for the Presidential Guards was open the gates of Malacañang, let the people enter their very own palace. That's why he is the reason why you're here right now. That was the very first time that common Filipinos would have a chance to set foot on the grounds of the Presidential Palace. Now, as you may all know, in 1957, a tragic part of our history took place. Magsaysay died in a plane crash accident in Mount Manunggal, Cebu. Hence, his vice president from Bohol, Carlos Feliciano Garcia, took the reins as the president of our country. Now, Garcia is a poet, lawyer, and also a chess player. He loves to play chess a lot. Now, his administration is best remembered for the Filipino First policy, which gave preferential treatment to Filipino businesses over foreign ones. Now, I mentioned earlier that he loves to play chess. That's why we have a chess set right here from him. Now, ang laki, no? But did you know that inside Malacañang Palace, out of the more than 70 rooms there's a room called the Garcia Chess Playing Room, a game room for playing chess. And here in Malacañang, we don't have any shortage for ghost stories as well. And one of the stories goes that in the Garcia room, then, the chess set move on a roll at night. Now, I would like you to look here.
Next,
Look at the bust of
Ramon
President
Magsaysay,
Garcia.
kaniyang Vice President si Carlo.
Now, this is almost unbelievable, but this bust of his was made by a blind sculptor. His name is R. Dumo. He's very talented, right? Now we have here next our president from Lubao, Pampanga, Diosdado Pangan Macapagal. He's known as the poor boy from Lubao because he once lived in a small nipa hut when he was younger. But because of his wit and perseverance, he was able to live in the in the most prominent house in our country, Malacañang Palace. Now, he never actually forgot where he came from. That's why most of his programs were addressed to poverty. Now, he was a bar top-notcher as well. When the bar exam result of Diosdado Macapagal was released, the whole faculty and full campus of the University of Santo Tomas celebrated with him. Now, I would like you to look right here. We have here a portrait of the couple. We have Diosdado Macapagal and Doña Evangelina Macapagal, the mother of our 14th President Gloria Macapagal Autolo. Bumalik dito sa mga kapatid mo. Hindi ba nila po ito? Rizal? Where in Rizal?
Ililia po.
Ay, nalayo pa. Nalayo pa yun. Pero hindi na sa mga.
Ito ang pinakamatagal yan.
Nalala ko po yung anak na di ba? Mga ganito.
1965. Akin po lang namin 1960.
Okay, everyone, we have here next the president who served the longest, President Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. Now, his administration is best remembered by the people for infrastructures. And I divided them into three. Now, the first is healthcare. Now, the Heart Center of the Philippines, the Lung Center of the Philippines, the National Kidney and Transplant Institute, and the Philippine Children Medical Center were project of his. And second, in terms of cultural buildings, the CCP complex was built. That includes the Cultural Center of the Philippines building, the PICC, the Manila Film Theater, and also the Folk Arts Theater. Now, last, transportation. Now, the Maharlika Highway or the Pan-Philippine Highway was inaugurated during his time. That was the first time that Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao was connected to each other. And in between that, the iconic San Juanico Bridge was a project of his. And also, the LRT-1 was his project. Now, I would like you to look here. This artwork was made by the Chilean artist Claudio Bravo. Now, they say that this is the actual height of President Marcos Sr. Now, if you're going to look at his barong, and if you compare it with that barong that he really wore during his lifetime, they really do match, right? The size. Now, look at the necklace. The necklace was given by Batasang Pambansa, and if you're going to look closely, you'll be able to see seals of the provinces of the Philippines. Now, we have a photo there of Madam Imelda Marcos. Now, I know the people here are supporters of President Marcos. So I have a question for you. How many days did President Marcos courted Madam Imelda? Ilang araw niya niligawan?
95.
No! 11 days! Because, well, yeah, wala bang 2 weeks? Not even 2 weeks. Now, President Marcos famously said that to Madam Imelda, marry me and I will court you forever. They were actually wed on the church that we saw earlier in San Miguel Church. Dinadaanan niya kanina in 1954. Ang architect ng pasad ng Malacañang na pinagawa ni Quezon ay si Juan Arellano, founder ng Arellano University. Okay, everyone, please follow me here to continue the tour. Malamig po ba? Malamig po sa Cagayan Museum natin to preserve the items. When we here in the Presidential Museum should respect all our presidents. We should celebrate them. Now we have here next our first female president, Corazon C. Aquino. Now during the time of President Corazon C. Aquino, there was a huge change in the executive body, more particularly during the length of presidential term. Before her, he can be president twice for 2 terms of 4 years. But during her time, he can only be president once. And she pays her tax. To pay tax. Now we have here next, we have our Mr. Tobacco. We have President Fidel V. Ramos. Fidel V. Ramos was a military man, a graduate of West Point in the US, one of the highest military schools in the world. He survived 2 major wars, the Korean War and the Vietnam War. And you know this, he loves to smoke tobacco. That was then before he became the president. Now, he promised the people that he will not smoke tobacco again nung nanalo siya bilang presidente. But he always kept his humidor or yung bakay ng tobacco beside him dahil nalilis daw ng kanyang mga lips yung tobacco. Ang ginagawa niya, iniibig niya na lamang sa kanyang mga labi. Now, we have here next, we have the action star, President Joseph Estrada Era Joseph Ejercito, Marcelo Ejercito. And, yung Erap Estrada was only his screen name. Now, he starred in more than 100 films. Now, contrary to the popular belief, President Erap was not impeached. Hindi po siya na-impeach. He resigned. That's why, naging presidente si Pangulong Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Now, Gloria became our president for 9 years. Now, look right there. At the age of 14 years old, she first lived in Malacañang Palace during the time of his father in 1961. Now, look here. This was the dress that she wore during her inauguration day in 2004. But this dress wasn't her at all in the first place. Dahil damit po yan ng kanyang ina, kay Doña Eva Macapagal. It was redesigned ng kaunti ni Dino Soto to make it fashionable. And as a true economist, in 2007, the Philippine peso was called as the best performing currency in Asia. It's because of her efforts in our government. Now, we have here next, we have her student. We have President Benigno Aquino III. We have our bachelor president right here. We simply call him bilang si Pinoy. Now, during the time of Pinoy, his government focused in transparency. Now, if you remember the No Wawa policy and also the K-12 program, that was his project. Now, we have right there a gift from Vietnam that is made out of coffee beans. Gawa po yan sa tape. Now, we have here next and last, the president from the South, Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Now, you all know this, Duterte hates drugs. That's why he started the War on Drugs program, and also the Build program was his. And because of him, Manila will have its first subway system because of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. I would like you to look right there. This barong of his that he wore during his inauguration day is very special. Now, it is made out of a rare textile called as the Mindanaoan silk. And I think it's very symbolic because that is where he came from the island of Mindanao. And he is the only president from the South. Now, let's success, sabi nila, there's a woman behind him. At nandito ang mga first ladies po natin. I love kwento sila because minsan lang po sila mahagip sa saysayan natin. Nandito si Hilaria Aguinaldo, the first lady of our country, but she never lived in Malacañang Palace dahil si Pangulong Emilio Aguinaldo po ay hindi naging presidente sa ating palasyo. Now, dun po sila sa Cavite. Ang ginatay niya ang Ihas de la Revolucion na naging precursor ng the Philippine National Red Cross. Now, please follow me here and look to one. We have women's suffrage and women's rights. The province of Aurora was named after her. Na nakakalungkot lamang isipin na noong 1949 po, nakaschedule siya to open or to inaugurate a new hospital named after her late husband, kay Pangulong Quezon sa Maler. Kaso nga lang, inabangan siya ng mga rebelde, pinagbabaril yung kanyang kotse at doon siya nasawi. Kaya ang probinsya ng Aurora ay sa kanya ipinangalan. Na nandito si Pasensya Hidalgo Laurel, the mother of our nation during our darkest years during World War II. She never lived in Malacañang because she knew in her heart, out of delikadesa, na ang kanyang asawa ay inappoint lamang ng mga Hapon. Kaya ayaw niyang tumira sa Malacañang Palace. For her, hindi niya deserve yon. At what I love about her, kahit na grade 5 lamang ang natapos niya dahil hindi kasi fair yung edukasyon dati sa mga kababaihan, she made sure na lahat ng 10 niyang anak mag-aaral sa mga prestiyosong paaralan sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. Nandito si Esperanza Osmeña. Nakakatuwang isipin na dyan lamang siya nakatira sa labas ng Malacañang. At dito na siya na-meet ni President Sergio Osmeña. Ikalawang asawa siya ni Pangulong Sergio Osmeña. Ang una po ay namatay. 10 ang anak ni Osmeña sa una niyang asawa, sa kanya ay 3. Si Pangulong Osmeña may pinakamaraming anak sa ating mga presidente. Nandito si Trinidad Rojas. Si Doña Tini po ay isang beauty queen. Nanalo siya bilang the Queen of the Manila Carnival noong 1920s. Now, kilala niyo po ba ang dating senador na si Jerry Rojas? Si Jerry po ay anak niya po at si Jerry ang tatay ni Mark Rojas. We have here next, we have si Victoria Siquia Quirino Gonzalez. Ang tawag sa kanya, the teenage first lady, the youngest to be our first lady at the age of 16 years old. She's not the wife of President Elpidio Quirino. Kung nakikinig kayo sa akin kanina sa tragic story ng mga Quirinos, dalawa ang anak ni Quirinong nakasurvive during World War II and isa siya doon. Now, her mother was killed by the Japanese as well as yung mga kapatid niya. That's why she stood as the first lady for her father. Now we have here next, we have Doña Luz Banzon Magsaysay. This is a love story. Si Doña Luz ay galing sa mayamang pamilya ng mga Banzon in Bataan. And meron siyang 4 pang mga kapatid. All of them are girls. So these 5 girls decided to use the family car. They had this joyride papunta ng Pangasinan province. But their car stalled. Tumirik yung kotse nila. Now, no one was helping them. But a car mechanic, a good-hearted car mechanic. Sino kaya yun? Si Magsaysay, who became her husband and the President of the Philippines. We have here next, Leonila is often called as Miss Inday because she's the first Visayan First Lady in our history. Together with her husband, Carlos P. Garcia, they're a Visayan power couple because Carlos P. Garcia is from Bohol and she is from the island of Cebu. Now we have here next, Doña Evangelina Macaraeg Macapagal, the mother of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. I always say to my guests that the brains of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo came from her father, which is a bar top-notcher, but the class came from her mother, who is a Macaraeg. They're very wealthy in Pangasinan. Now we have here next, the most famous, I know that you know who she is. We have Madam Imelda Romualdez Marcos. Now, Madam Imelda is the most famous among all of them. Well, she served the longest, from 1965 until 1986. Now, I know what's on your mind. Imelda is famous for her collection of shoes. But where are they now? They're not here in Malacañang anymore, that's clear. They're now in the Marikina Shoe Museum. But why there? Well, the real reason why Imelda have many shoes then, it's because of the city of Marikina, a shoe manufacturing city in the outskirts of Metro Manila. They used to give Madam Imelda tons of shoes as gifts. That's why she amassed so many shoes since 1986. Now we have here a bust of Madam Imelda Marcos that's made out of plaster, made by the national artist Guillermo Tolentino. Now we have here Amelita Ming Ramos. I love this woman because she supported tons of environmental causes like piso para sa Pasig or a penny for the Pasig River. That was her pet project. In the 1990s, she supported an organization that helps to plant seedlings in Arroceros, a patch of land near Manila City Hall. And now, those seedlings are now towering trees and they're now serving as the last forest of the city of Manila. Now, we have here next, we have Doctora Luisa Loy Henson Estrada. We have our birthday girl. Today is her birthday, her 93rd birthday. Now, happy birthday, Doctora Loy. She's a psychiatrist and she used to work in the Mandaluyong Mental Hospital. Now, if not for her, we will not meet the other first ladies because it was her who commissioned all the paintings that you saw earlier. They were painted by Lulu Coching Rodriguez. Now, this is where our tour ends. Thank you very much for visiting the Presidential Museum. I hope you've enjoyed the tour, but most of all, you've learned a lot from our history. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. Salamat po. Maybe we should exit this way na lang. Please follow me here.
So yun mga kabiyahe, tapos na ang ating tour dito sa Malacañang. Salukuyan. So, thank you sir. So dito mga kabiyahe, marami kayo dito matututunan lalo na sa historical, sa mga personal life ng ating mga president, mga naging president, lahat-lahat ang ano po dito mga kabiyahe. So ito mga kabiyahe ay open sa public. Yun na rin po ang sinabi ni President BBM, open to the public itong sinasabi niyang pasyalan dito sa Malacañang. Walang bayad, libre ang tour, pati ang tour guide at vehicle. Libre po yan. At yan po yung motor na yan ng ating sasakyan naman. Yan si YT na nagdadala sa atin kung saan-saan tayo magustuhan natin pumuntang lugar. Ayan si YT. So, ayan naman si Ate B. So sundan nyo lang mga kabiyahe ang ating video dahil ito siguro yung video ko na sobrang haba. Puputol-putulin natin para mapaganda natin ang content natin. So ngayon, kita-kits ulit tayo susunod. Byahenifrank, God bless!